Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. What's going on, guys? It's Daniel. We're back here again today. Today we have this interview. This just came out and it's gone completely viral. It's Andrew Tate giving an interview here with, I actually can't remember this guy's name, but this got already in like 2 days, like 8 million views. And this part of the interview, supposedly he goes into talking about Islam and Christianity, kind of comparing and contrasting the two, and talking on his, I guess, recent experience probably with Islam. For those of you that don't know, I'm sure most of you do know, Andrew Tate did take Shahada and become a Muslim recently within the last year, I believe. And so, I mean, I feel like in a lot of ways, Andrew Tate, he's undeniably influential in today's world, right? He's kind of like got his hand on the joystick of a lot of the culture, especially for young men in the West. This thing, the manosphere, which, you know, I don't know how benevolent, how good that kind of scene is. You know, the manosphere, the no-fap, the self-help gurus, this kind of stuff. Andrew Tate is in a way connected to this, but him coming to Islam is very interesting because those two realms agree in a lot of ways, but they also contradict in a lot of ways. And so anyway, I'm interested to see what he has to say here. You know, he's been in jail recently. He's had a lot of time to think, a lot of time to read the Quran. And yeah, let's see what he says. First, before we get into the video, brothers and sisters, I'd like to take the opportunity to remind you that Allah tells us in the Quran, who is better in speech than one who invites to Allah and does righteousness and says, indeed, I am one of the Muslims. Brothers and sisters, I'm introducing a shirt that I designed to inspire and encourage you to spread the message of Islam to those around you, inshallah. These shirts are 100% cotton, so they're both comfortable to wear, but they also have a simple design that serves as a great conversation starter, an invitation to those around you that are perhaps curious about Islam, providing you an opportunity to share the beauty of Islam and the truth of it with others and receive the blessings and rewards as a result. So I invite you to wear this t-shirt with pride and let it be a reminder to always strive towards giving dawah and sharing the message of Islam with those around you, inshallah. Assalamu alaikum. Let's get into the video.
What's been your evolution of your faith and where are you at today?
Yeah, I think Newton's, it's third law, equal and opposite force, what you just said there is absolutely true. There has to be an equal and opposite force to all the evil in the world. And that the equal and opposite force to all that evil has to be God. And I've talked about this at length even with atheists.
Okay, well, I wouldn't say that's necessarily an Islamic belief, because the equal and opposite force to evil is good, right? And good doesn't necessarily equate with God. God is the creator of good and also the creator of evil. God is the creator of everything. And so to say that evil is the opposite force of God, in a way, equates evil and God. It puts evil on the level of God. In Islam, we can't do this. Allah, Qul huwa Allahu ahad, Allahu samad, yam yalid wa lam yulid, wa lam yakul lahu kufuwan ahad. God, in this surah of the Quran, God tells us that God can't be compared to anything that's created. Evil is something that's been created. And so it's good. And so to compare evil with God, you can't really do that. God is the source of good, I will give you that. But to say that the opposite of evil is God, I don't think this is actually a correct view in Islam. I could be wrong. I'm also a new Muslim, but this is my understanding.
Yes, and I try and say that regardless of whether you're an atheist or not, you're thinking of God as a man in the sky, but you need to think of God as a concept as a whole. And once you do that, it's impossible to accept that he doesn't exist, right? I said to the atheist, I said, let's say there was 2 islands. You're shipwrecked, right? And there's 2 islands. Both of them are full of savages. On one island, you and your friend are shipwrecked. On one island, your friend goes and he crashes and they kill him and they eat him. and you go to another island and they want to kill you and eat you, but they don't because it's against their religion. Did God save your life? Who cares? Who doesn't even know the name of their God? But their God said, don't kill shipwrecked survivors. And now you're alive. So their God saved your life. The concept of God in and of itself saved your life. You owe God just for the concept of it, the idea of it. So even the idea of opposing evil as a whole is a belief in God. So you're either an evil person or you believe in God in some regard. And then once I understood that there had to be an equal and opposite force.
Well, that depends how you define God, because there's some people that believe in some gods. And from an Islamic perspective, those people practicing their worship for their gods are actually doing evil things. You know, you look at some of the Hindu sacrifice rituals and stuff. This is, from an Islamic perspective, again, this stuff is completely evil. It's completely nonsense. But that's their God. So, again, I can't even remember what he said there. He said, because the people believe in God and that changes their actions, that makes God as a concept real, and you either oppose evil, or you either are evil or you believe in God. But I think, yeah, that depends how you define God, because some people believe in God, in a God, in their God, but that God is a false God.
I was raised Christian. I live in a Christian nation. Romania is actually, I think, the second or third most Christian country on earth. It's a very Christian country here. It's churches everywhere. They strongly believe. And that's where I began my journey. But I always had a very healthy respect for Islam, because I understand that to a degree, to have a religion at all, you have to have an intolerance to a degree. Because without an intolerance, you don't have rules. You don't have laws. You don't have any, like you said, you have to earn God's respect. If you're a religion which is tolerant of everything, then you don't have to earn God's respect. You can be a bad person and do bad things. God loves me, so it's fine. Well, no, it's not, because that's not the point of the religion. So then you extrapolate that out, and I was sitting and thinking, well, what's the primary function of a religion? And the primary function of a religion, I don't believe is the religion exists so I can live forever. I mean, that's a nice thought. But I think on a macro level, the primary objective of a religion is to restore and contain some degree of traditional value within the society. How do you judge? Let me change the way I...
So I believe actually the etymology of the word religion is Latin language, and it's to tie back, like as if you were to tie your hands behind your back, and it's a way that the point of a religion is to actually restrict yourself, and so yeah, this aligns with what he's saying here, that the point of a religion is to have some kind of law, to have something that you live by, that dictates what's okay to do and what, more importantly, what's not okay to do.
I worded that. How do you judge the success of a religion? I don't think you can judge it by the number of people who join it, because there's lots of people who are Catholic who don't act Catholic. They don't act in any way particularly Christian. Anyone can say they're something. You can walk into a strip club and everyone says they're Christian. It doesn't mean anything, right? So how do you judge the success of a religion? Well, I like to think the best way to judge the success of a religion is how successful is it at fighting evil? How successful is it at preserving the morality of a population in X parameter?
Yeah, see, here, Tate is like using a lot of these words like preserving morality and fighting evil, but these words are subjective. I personally believe they are objective. I believe that there is an objective evil, there is an objective morality, and I believe that's all taught within Islam. But some people don't. There's people that are not Muslims, right, that don't understand this, and so what one person believes is evil is necessarily sometimes different than what another person believes is evil. And the same thing goes for morality. So, I don't know, when Tate uses like words like these, I guess most people kind of have a sense of what's right and wrong. But at the same time, I think we have to be careful when we use words like this and don't clearly define what we mean, because it's easy to rationalize, especially for young men, being that is probably the target audience for this kind of thing. it's easy to rationalize. Oh, well, it's okay if I do this because that, this and this, or it's okay if I do that because this and this and this. So I wish Tate would kind of extrapolate that a bit more, which he may in this interview.
An ex-geographical area. So when you look at it from that way, you can't say that Islam isn't the most successful religion on earth. It's the most successful in regards to opposing evil. It's the most successful in regards to opposing its differing viewpoints. It's the most successful in regards to having people act within the limits and the confines of what it finds to be moral and good to God. It's the most adhered to. It's the most feared. It's the most respected in most forms. And then also I'd like to think...
I would say it's the most feared.
Yeah, it's the most feared.
that comment says a lot. He spoke a lot of words by just saying a few there.
But what is respect without fear? Do we respect men we don't fear? If there's a man who could do absolutely nothing to you on any level at all, you might be nice to him, sure, because we're not bad people. But would you really respect him? If you could take his chick in front of his face, set his car on fire, and he wouldn't do a thing, you wouldn't respect him. You might be nice to him because we're not bullies, but you wouldn't respect him. Respect and fear are linked. They're not always the same thing, and you can maybe have fear without respect, but it's very hard to have respect without fear. And also, I heard someone say once that we see the world as we see ourselves. If you're a thief, you think everyone's a thief. If you're a liar, you think everyone's a liar. And I kind of agree with that. I understood that.
Wow. Andrew is a genius, man. He was directing that at the guy that made the comment. This is what I think. He was directing what he just said at the guy that made the comment. Well, I think Islam is the most feared. And he said that in a sort of backhanded manner. And Andrew Tate, wow, that was like a masterclass. He first he agreed with him, and then sort of extrapolated what, further. What did he mean by his point about, he compared and contrasted respect and fear in a good way, and in a way that made sense, that didn't disagree necessarily with what the guy said. But then he says that. I think that sometimes we see the world in a sort of reflective way, where if we think other people are violent, then maybe us ourselves are violent, or et cetera, et cetera. So that was really well played by Andrew there.
I also like to think we see religion as we see ourselves. I like to see myself as a person whose respect you have to earn. I like to see myself as a person who has strong, rigid boundaries. I like to see myself as a person who will stand up and say, no, that's wrong. I like to see myself as a person who's not afraid of being shamed by whatever community for saying, I don't agree with that particular ideal. I like seeing myself that way. So if I'm going to see myself that way, then I'm going to naturally align with a religion that operates within that form. So when I say Islam is the last religion on earth, I say it because it seems to be the only one who will stand up and say, no, we don't care. No. That's not what the book says. No. I was raised Christian, and Muslims as a whole, we have no problems with Christians. None at all. I don't want anyone to think I'm anti-Christian and like I dislike Christians. We don't have a problem with Christians. We believe in a lot of the same things. We believe in Jesus. We put more respect on the name of Jesus than most Christians do. I just don't like the idea of people saying they're a Christian and saying, but because I'm a Christian, I can do whatever I want and throw all the rules away and none of it matters. Because once you have that level of tolerance, you no longer have a religion. Islam.
Yeah, and that doesn't even make sense within the... To me, it says in the Bible clearly, I believe it's in Matthew, I can't remember exactly where, Matthew, it says, Jesus says that whoever doesn't live by the law will not enter the kingdom of heaven. So Jesus came not to abolish the law, but to fulfill the law, which is another saying of Jesus. And then, but then at the same time, you get all these Christians who say, well, I'm saved. I'm saved by Jesus, so, it doesn't really matter what I do. I don't think that holds water.
It seems to be the last religion left with parameters. If you don't have parameters, you don't have a religion at all. So the closer I found myself to God, the closer...
You can tell easily this guy's a Christian.
I found myself to Islam. That's just how it ended.
And Andrew, speaking of fear, one could argue that Islam these days, certainly in the last 20 years with the war on terror, they've also been the most vilified.
Absolutely.
Right? So, everything that we've seen happen with extremism and everything that's going on all over the world. How are you grappling with that? You've been a Christian for years now. Islam, everything.
And you know what? That's such an interesting question, because when I was younger, especially when I was an atheist, I would sit and think, people are really doing terror attacks and doing all this crazy stuff because, you know, they're upset over a cartoon. That's so stupid. And nobody should kill anybody. Nobody should kill anybody.
Charlie Hebdo, everything.
Yeah, nobody should kill anybody. Nobody should kill anybody. I'll make that very clear. But also part of me is now saying, why would you want to insult the prophet for billions of people? Why would you want to do that? I'm not saying I don't even want to make the argument against free speech. I'm not even saying you couldn't be allowed to. This is a sensitive subject. I'm just saying, what kind of person wakes up and thinks, I want to do that? I don't know. I just don't think that's a healthy mindset. Like when I see these Satanists, and they're, especially in America, and they're doing, let's keep it on Christianity, these Satanists, and they're dressing up Jesus as gay and all this stuff, like, that's not done in any kind of good faith. There's no good reason to do that. That's done with genuinely malicious intention. And what kind of people want to do that? And then the answer by extension is, I thought America was a Christian country. So how can you have a Christian country where the prophets of the religion are mocked to the highest possible levels within the confines of the country and it's promoted? Is that a Christian country? Doesn't seem like a Christian country to me. I don't think the same thing would happen with Islam in Saudi Arabia. I can't imagine that happening. So how can you say we're a Christian country, but everyone's mocking our God on the streets? Ha ha ha.
Yeah, this is a great point. I don't know if I would even say, you know, everyone says America is a Christian country, but there's a lot of Freemasonry and deep in the roots of the forefathers of the United States, and some of them were Christians, but not all of them. And, you know, really the United States of America was really founded on the idea of religious freedom. And sometimes I wonder if that's going to fail, if that's a failed experiment. America was made with this, you know, idealistic idea, this idealistic belief that, you know, oh, we can just all practice our religions and we can all just get along and you can't intrude on anybody else. But can that really work? Can that really work? Because you see where America is now, where there's just almost absolutely no unity. It's ironic. It just hit me just now. It's the United States of America. The word unity is in the very name of the country, yet you see almost no unity in America. There's almost no unity. It's constant division. You have, even amongst Christians, you have Protestant, you have Catholics, you have Methodists, you have Baptists, and they all can't agree on what they believe, and then you have Republicans, and you have Democrats, and you have far right extremists, and you have liberals. Everyone is so divided in the United States of America. It's ironic, and so to me, I do wonder sometimes if it's all going to come to a point. And eventually the U.S. is going to realize this won't work. To allow everyone to practice what they believe freely can't work. What if that's true? I'm not saying it is true. I'm not saying it's a definite thing going to happen. But imagine that possibility. And to me, it's feasible. It's feasible because, like I said, if you let everyone do what they want to do, it's chaos. It's chaos. And if you have chaos, order can never come from chaos. And you need order to have sustenance. You need order to have sustenance. And so I do wonder sometimes if the U.S. is going to self-implode because of this idea that, oh, well, we can all just, you know, let each other do whatever. As far as religious freedom goes, I just wonder if that's a recipe for disaster.
It's on Netflix, ha ha ha. That's not a Christian country to me. So if you're not a Christian country, then where's the religion? The religion's supposed to enforce certain boundaries. You're supposed to at least show it respect, you know? And it's also kind of interesting because in Christian countries, there's more respect for Islam than there is for Christianity. In a Christian country, name one.
It's true.
They still don't do it with the Islamic Prophet.
Why do you think that is?
It's too much smoke. It's just not worth the heat. Because people believe. And I'm not advocating for violence on any level. I'm saying that even these degenerates who are trying to destroy people's belief in God, like we've discussed earlier, because they don't want you to have any baseline morality. If you believe in God, there are commandments, yes and no. That baseline morality prevents you being an absolute slave, so they're trying to destroy it. But even those degenerates who are trying to mock and disgrace God, understand there's a point where it just backfires and, ooh, this is smoke. And they don't want the smoke. And shouldn't God be feared? I'm scared of God. It's the only thing I fear. I fear God. They can put me in jail. I know I'm telling the truth. God's on my side. I fear God. So God should be feared. So once again, does anybody fear the Christian God? I haven't seen anybody scared of him in a long time. And it's kind of crazy because it's very interesting. The mass migration and all these things are leftist policies, but then also Islam is the most right-wing religion on earth. It's kind of very interesting. I grew up in England, and I grew up in Luton, which is a town which is mainly Muslims. It's a huge Islamic community. And there was a bunch of English people who were complaining about there's too much immigration, we're losing our culture, and I understood their point absolutely. But these are the same people complaining about all the left-wing LGBT in schools and all these issues. And I was like, the only allies you have against this are the Muslims. They're the only allies you have in any of this. The Christians don't protest against any of this stuff. There's very few Christians who will get up off their ass and complain. In fact, I saw on Twitter yesterday, one of the churches was lit up in rainbow. I have nothing against gay people. I don't care. And that's actually another point I want to make into about this thing. I think most people don't care, and I think that bothers them. Have you ever had an argument with a girl, and she's like stropping around the house, she's huffing and puffing, and you just don't give a shit? So she has to keep upping the ante till you eventually go, what's the problem? Because she tried the low-level stuff, and you didn't care. I kind of feel like this has a remnants of that. I'm gay, cool. I want to get married. Fine. I want to wave my dick in your kid's face. Whoa, 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 whoa. It's like, whoa, 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 whoa. I feel like they tried to annoy us, and we're like, we don't give a shit. Do whatever you want. Be a person. We don't care.
What a point.
And now they're like, okay, well, we have to get to a limit where they have to react. Yeah. We want attention now. We want them to care about
What's
this.
the right move on that?
Well, that's the point. You know, it's difficult. Because there comes a point where you simply have to address it, and now you have to oppose it. And this is, sorry to interrupt you, but this is why they're so careful and so clever with what they do. They package it all together. LGBTQ. I would argue, I don't know what Q is, firstly. Sorry, I don't know what Q is.
Questioning.
Q. All right. I would argue that G and T are very different things.
Beyond.
A gay man and someone who's chopped the dick off are very different things.
Yeah, and actually you have people within the LGBTQI plus ABCDEFG movement that don't like, there's gay people that are like, no, trans people, y'all are crazy, like don't associate yourself with us. So there's even, it's kind of like he said, it's packaged in this sort of unified way where they're this one single unified army, but that's actually not the case.
So they package it all together. So now, because the spectrum of your enemy is so large, you have people who are fully this way. Mm-hmm. You have people who we accept and are normal in society. We have no problem with gay people. And they put it all together. You're an enemy of all these people. And they complicate the argument and they mix it all together. And now you're a bigot. And really you just want your kids to be left alone. Really you just want to leave the children alone.
Of course.
All you want to do is leave your kids alone. And then it's like, okay, I'm now raising children. I have more children than most people would believe. How do I protect my children from this insanity? God. Which God can protect my children? Allah, Islam. I'll move them to Dubai or Saudi Arabia, and none of this will happen. Can I trust a Christian nation? Some of them. Romania is a Christian nation, and to a large degree, they oppose quite a lot of this stuff. But they're also NATO, and they're also EU, and they also rely on bailouts and grants and money.
Whoa. Careful. Careful there, Tater. Hey, you mentioned NATO. It was funny because he said he mentioned a Christian country that to a large degree opposes a lot of this stuff. And first thing that came to mind for me was actually Russia. And you see, like right now with all this stuff going on with Russia, at least to my understanding, a lot of the reason that Russia is opposing the NATO stuff is because they view the West as this joke, this disgusting, degenerate virus that's slowly creeping towards their land, and them being an Orthodox Christian country, they don't want it to creep in too much.
And on a long enough time frame, even in the 7 years I've lived here, I have watched certain attitudes change because money buys influence and power.
So Andrew,
there you go.
Not to cut you off, how much of you converting from Christianity to Islam is actually the belief in God versus the societal pressures that are facing children? Because it seems like it's a little bit of both.
For you to believe in God, you have to respect him. How can I believe and put my life in the hands of someone I don't respect? And I'm going to respect a God which is feared.
Yeah, but it's a vertical relationship, right? It's not a horizontal. If you base it horizontally, they're going to disappoint you. If you think about, if you're going to believe, let's go believe Prophet Muhammad, his teaching, and let's go believe the Bible, NIV, and Jesus, Father, for God so loved the world that he gave his, you gave your son for me. Let's say that's true. And you're doing it based on faith. Who would do such a thing for me? What a level of sacrifice for you to do that. Who am I for you to be so worried about me? If you look at it from that angle, it's not necessarily coming from a place of fear. It's coming from a place of grace. It's coming from a place of love. It's coming from a place of,
absolutely,
a different feel. Because I do believe.
I see what he's saying here, but the Proverbs 1:7 states that the fear of the Lord is the beginning of knowledge, but fools despise wisdom and instruction. The many places in the Bible, Christians are instructed to fear the Lord. So I see what he's saying about the Father giving the Son, but that doesn't mean you shouldn't fear God. Doesn't mean you shouldn't fear God.
The part that upsets me is the fear aspect, that they're allowing others to mock your God, to mock Jesus, to mock whatever religion it is you're a part of, and you're kind of like, oh, they're just funny, man. No, it's not funny. You just crossed the line. Like JC has that one line where he says, don't tell me why what the guy said about me. Tell me why he was so comfortable saying it to you.
100%.
Tell me why he said comfortable to you. So I think that's the part about faith. I understand when you're saying the fear and the respect side. So that's the part where fear is needed. I totally agree. But the part where you were...
There's an interesting cut there. It seemed like the conversation was just going to get a little bit, what's the word? It's going to be a little bit of conflict, a little bit of friction, and I think they made a cut. I sensed a but. I sensed a but coming, but they cut.
Making a point about LGBTQ, you're like, I don't even know what Q stands for. It's questioning. And then you're like, well, gay, okay, cool. Trans? Listen, man, spectrum. And he said if we were to say which religion's the far right, it's going to be Muslim. Totally get it. They're on the far right. Christian today is kind of going center left today. Like they're kind of being soft right now. Okay. So if I want to raise my kids, I'm going to take my kids to, Dubai, and I'm going to take my kids to Saudi Arabia. Why? Because I'm defending against some of these immoral philosophies that they have. I don't want to go there. I actually understand that argument.
Yeah, and I want to make one more point. I do believe there is one God, and I believe there's many different paths to God. And I'm not a religious scholar, and I'm not an expert on Islam. I'm doing my best, and I'm reading the Quran as often as I can. And it does say that Christians on the day of reckoning will see how close they were to the truth. And we are allies. We are not enemies in any regard, Christians and Muslims. And I do believe that the idea of Christians and Muslims shaking hands and saying, let's put an end to a lot of this garbage would be fantastic. I'm not anti-Christian in any regard.
That's interesting he says that. For those of you who remember my dad coming on the channel, I'm sure most of you do. This was kind of what my dad was trying to tell me. Like, Christians and Muslims, you need to work on inviting more Christians to your channel and doing more content that's, involves Christianity in some sense, because what he was saying is that we should unite Muslims and Christians against evil. And I understand what he was saying, and Andrew's kind of saying a similar thing here. But my response to that is that Christians themselves can't even agree within their own religion on basic things, on creed, on law, on this kind of stuff. And so to take them as an ally, to me, isn't smart, especially if you're going to fight what you're deeming as evil, because they can't even agree on what's evil. So how are you gonna take them as someone that you trust and potentially entrust them with your life to in some kind of battle against evil, when they can't even agree on what evil is? Whereas within Islam, Muslims agree on what is evil and what's not. And so the Quran verse, I can't remember which one, but I believe there's a verse in the Quran or an ayat that Allah tells us not to take Christians or Jews as wali. Wali, to my understanding, is like a guardian or someone you somehow put trust in to a pretty high degree. And so I think Andrew, what he's saying here, while it does have good intentions, I think Muslims, we have to be careful. We have to be careful about trusting Christians to that extent. I mean, to sit down with them and have a conversation and agree with them on like this kind of stuff and both agree, hey, yeah, this stuff is completely wrong, and let's shake hands on it and now we're friends, that's cool. That's great. I love that. But to like, I don't know, when I think about taking that to an extreme of like forming some kind of universal alliance of Christians and Muslims against evil, I just don't see that panning out well, personally.
I just found myself, as I became more and more religious, seeking and looking for a faith which not only I could be proud of, but a faith which was guiding in regards to, I don't know what a Christian would answer to certain questions nowadays. What does a Christian answer to, I'm a transsexual and I want to show your kids my genitals?
Great
What's
question.
a Christian? Well, a Christian's supposed to say no, do they? I know what my Muslim friends would say. I don't know. If you're a Christian, I don't know how you're supposed to act. I don't know what you're supposed to adult. I don't get it.
And the thing is, they don't know either. Most Christians, they don't know either. They might claim that they know and say, oh, well, we should act like this. But then you ask another Christian and they say something completely different. And they both may or may not have sources for what they're saying. And it's just a mess. Christianity in itself is a big melting pot of a lot of different beliefs and ideas. And look at the book that it's all based on. It's a combination of different books. The Holy Bible is fact. It's a combination of books written by different people. And so what do you expect to manifest out of that is, it starts from this kind of hodgepodge of mixes of ideas thrown together into a single book. And that's what you end up with. You end up with a religion that's a big hodgepodge of ideas, and some people believe this, and some people believe this conflicting idea, and some people believe that. And so again, this is sort of my thing with Christianity. And Andrew's saying it well. Like, what do they even believe? How do they even, what are they supposed to do when shit really hits the fan, when they really have to respond to something and confront something that really matters? How are they supposed to do it?
The true believer says
The true
no.
believer. The true believer.
Yeah.
But how many are true believers? I don't know. I see all over Twitter, all these churches are losing their minds. It seems very complicated. Islam seems very, very simple. You know what's right, you know what's wrong.
I have a question regarding, we talked.
I think we'll end it there. That's a good ending spot. All in all, Andrew Tate is amazingly well spoken, and may Allah bless him. May Allah give him hidayah and knowledge, and guide him to the straight path. He's very well spoken. I'm very happy he's a Muslim, and it's good to have him in Islam. It's good to have him in the Ummah. I'll just say that. But otherwise, yeah, I think he brought up some good points and compared and contrasted Islam, and it was interesting to see him kind of go back and forth there with that other guy who I believe is a Christian. Nonetheless, may Allah bless you generously for watching this video with me, and inshallah, we will see you all in the next one. Assalamu alaikum.